What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you one of my budget picks for this format, and that is going to be Enneacraft. Now I think Enneacraft are really going to cause a lot of players a lot of issues. It's kind of an anti-meta style deck. It doesn't have like a direct amazing matchup against a particular type of deck, but what it does do is it has a lot of resilience, it's got a lot of consistencies, and it's cards that a lot of people will overread and over-expect and then underestimate exactly what they can do. So I'm going to take you through the entire profile. The best thing about this is all of the old cards for the Enneacraft you could pick up for about £35. That may change, but all of their new cards as well are incredibly cheap because they only got one super and two commons, and then everything else, it kind of comes down to how control orientated you want to make it. So I'm going to take you through the main deck, I'm going to take you through the side deck, I'm also going to take you through a kind of an extra deck in one way or another, but in this particular build, the extra deck to me is irrelevant. I don't use any of the cards in it. It is literally just prosperity and extra fodder. But if you want to start using the extra deck cards I'm going to show you, that's when you're going to start looking at either playing Ultimate Slayer, or more commonly, you start to play Zaborg the Mega Monarch, and that's when you can rip apart your extra deck and also your opponents. So, with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Starting off with the searches of the deck. So there are now 5 small ships, all of those being level 1s. So to start off with this one, we've got the Azonia AI, and they all pretty much have the exact same scale effect. So in the scale, you pay 900 life points, you reveal 3 Enneacraft cards from the deck to the and your opponent randomly adds one to the hand. So in other words, you want to play cards that are multiples and playing them at 3, because then you're guaranteed to get exactly what you need. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of randomization. They also have effects in the hand, so you get to reveal these cards to then special summon any monster from your hand in face down defense position, but you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate this entire effect except in face down defense position, which is why you can't play cards like Kaijus or Lava Golems, because they are special summons, but you will have the ability to play Ra Sphere mode, because that is technically your normal summon. Then with the Azonia, this one is going to have a flip effect to banish face up a random card in your opponent's hand until the end phase. When your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect to add a card from the deck to the hand, you get a quick effect to change this card from face down to face up, and then add an Enneacraft card from the deck to the hand. So with these cards like this, what you'll end up doing is your opponent will go, cool, activate a card like Fiendsmith Track, for example. You go, that's absolutely fine, chain the Azonia to flip it face up. As you resolve the chain, the Azonia will then add the card. Then your opponent will resolve the track, so adding a card, discarding a card, and then on a new chain, you've got a mandatory effect, so it'll be Chain Link 1, and then your opponent's effect will be Chain Link 2, being the Lurry to summon back. So Lurry would summon back, the Azonia would then take one card from your opponent's hand, and you move on from that point on. So that's just kind of how those effects work. All the flip effects are mandatory, so unless your opponent has mandatory effects, they will always be Chain Link 1s as well. So keep that in mind. Turn player will always go Chain Link 1, but it also comes down to mandatory effects first, and then everything else will be trigger effects. Then we've got 3 Yugioh, so the exact same scale effect. You're never going to pendulum summon your monsters because your scales are always going to be zeros, so you never actually build the scales, but like I've already said, when you reveal these in the hand, you can't special summon except for face down defense position, and you can't do that with pendulum monsters. So then this one on when your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand, so Azuna for example, you get to change this card from face down to face up, add an Enneacraft card from the deck to the hand, and then its flip effect is mandatory destroy one monster your opponent controls. Then we've got 3 of the brand new one of the Expertas. So this one again has the exact same scale effect. So each time an Enneacraft monster is flip face up, which is something that all of them have as well, you can place an EC counter on this card. EC counters are important because you remove them with the Enneanopolis field spell and then burn your opponent for 900 damage per EC counter. And it's any time a card is flip face up, which is insane because if you flip out your opponent's monsters, again, you'll get even more burn damage off the back of that. Then its own effect is when your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that sets a card or card. So if you use, for example, any of the Drekatals, this card will trigger. And then you flip, destroy one spell or trap your opponent controls, and if you do, you special summon a monster from the hand in face down defense position. So that's ways of being able to add Enneacraft from the deck to the hand and then summon them during your opponent's turn. And then you do have cards that will allow you to control when you flip them up and down, depending on what kind of build you want to go with. Then for the tools, we've got the 2 of the Okanari. So the reason we go with 2 of this one specifically is when your opponent activates a card effect in the grave or banishment, change it from face down to face up, and then shuffle up to 3 cards from your opponent's grave and or banishment back into the deck. And then we've got the Tremoria. So this one is when your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect to special summon a monster. So if there was to activate Polymerization, for example, flip it, add an Enneacraft, but then you non-target negate an effect of an face-up effect monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. Then moving into your boss monsters. So these are the cards that you're going to want to reveal your little guys like your Tremora, your Okanari, Yugioh, and so on, to then put these guys face down, because then when your opponent starts activating an effect, these are going to flip up and cause them a lot of issues. So the first one is going to be your main boss monster, being your Atari Ma. So this one being 3,000 attack is pretty good, but then its scales effect, the same as the other big guys that you play, is each time monster is flip face up, you place an EC counter on it. But at the end of the battle phase, if you have an Enneacraft card in your other Pendulum Zone, you take one monster your opponent controls with attack less than that card, this card specifically, and destroy it. So if you have two big guys in your scales, you get to destroy two cards at the end of the battle phase, which is quite important as well. Its trigger effect to flip its face up is when your opponent activates a card or effect on their field during your turn, you flip it from face down to face up, and if you do, destroy that card and negate the activation. On top of that, its flip effect is change all of your opponent's monsters to face down defense position, and the monsters that would change their battle position cannot change their battle position. So when they flip face down, that's it. They're locked into position. You can't change them. They can't flip them. The only downside is that they can still fuse with them. And then we've got the brand new one. Now this is what's going to make this deck insane. So this is free of the Enneacraft Atelier Spear. So again, the exact same scale effect of being able to gain EC counters and then end the battle phase, target and destroy. But its actual flip effects are mental. Well, it doesn't actually have a flip effect, it has a continuous effect, which is mental. So, when your opponent activates a card or effect as Chain Link 3 or higher, so just use Cool Tunes as an example, right? If you were to make your normal Cool Tune play and go into Trap Maker, it'll be like Chain Link 1 Trap Maker, Chain Link 2 would be Rotary, for example, and then Chain Link 3 will be Q. Then what you get to do is you get to flip your spear face up. In doing so, this will then negate the activation of your opponent's cards and effect activated before this card on the chain. And if you do, destroy them. Again, you get to reveal this card in the hand, especially on any of your Enneacraft or any monster in your hand face down defense position. But it also has a continuous effect that after this card was flipped face up while it's in the monster zone, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to their cards or effect activation. So for example, okay, let's say they went Chain Link 1, Chain Link 1 Trap Maker, Chain Link 2 Rotary, Chain Link 3 Q. You would then go Chain Link 4 Spear, flip it face up. They would then go, let's say for example, Chain Link 4 Cool Tune Synchro, okay? You would go, yeah, that's fine. Because then they wouldn't be able to play anything on top of that. If they had another card like, let's say, oh, not even a better example would probably be, you'd flip up the Spear, and then they would try and go and activate Cool Tune Clip. And you go, yeah, that's fine. Because they wouldn't then be able to activate, if they go, okay, cool, and after that I want to activate Cool Tune Synchro. You'd be like, no, 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 you can't do that. You can't change your own effects. So you can basically just stop chaining to their stuff at that point, and they will never be able to build a higher chain link. So once this card then becomes face up, if they then wanted to try and go, cool, Trap Maker Chain Link 1, Rotary Chain Link 2, Q Chain Link 3, they couldn't, which is insane. It's so repressive in that matter. It then means that your opponent will not be able to build trigger effects, which is insane. As long as you don't interact with your opponent, they will never be able to get past Chain Link 1 with cards like this, which is crazy. And then we've got 3 of the Pexia. So this one is targeted protection, which is actually quite important. So when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card or cards you control, so your monsters, your spells, anything, flip this face up, and then in doing so, negate the effect, and then you get to banish face down a random card from your opponent's hand. After this card was flipped face up, so quite like the Spear, while it's in the monster zone, your opponent cannot target cards in the field or graveyard with card effects. So, again, the exact same example. Let's say they activate Mystical Space Typhoon, they target one of your spell and traps. You flip up the Pexia. They then cannot activate Infinite Impermanence, because once this card is flipped face up, you cannot target any other cards on the field or in the graveyard. So they can't imperm the Pexia. They would have to droplet it, which is obviously going to be one way of doing it, or cards that just don't target. Then I've got one of the Leon. Now, Leon is kind of a questionable one. You can put this in the side deck on the main deck because it's predominantly for going second. So this card is, when your opponent activates a card or effect in response to a card or effect activation, quick effect, change it from face down to face up, and then non-target return up to 3 cards from the field to the hand. Then its flip effect, after it is flipped face up, while it's in the monster zone, each time your opponent adds a card or cards to their hand, by card effect, they take 900 damage for each card. And again, that's continuous, it's not like activation every single time. And then the final Enneacraft monster is the one tail. So this is protection from destruction. So when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a card or cards on the field, quick effect, change it from face down to face up. And then Enneacraft monsters and then Enneacraft spells you control cannot be destroyed by card effects for the rest of this turn. After it's flipped face up, while it's in the monster zone, each time a monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard, they take 900 damage. So really, really oppressive, especially when you've already got your Enneacraft, which is going to be your field spell to constantly keep burning your opponent for 900. It can get quite insane. Now, the reason Leon's in the main is because I don't have space in the side deck right now, and that's something that I need to find out, because it's one of the ones that I wouldn't mind it being in the side deck. Then for the spell cards, we've got 3 Enneacraft Reverse. So this is basically like your Ignition Reload. So you shuffle any number of Enneacraft monster cards from your hand and or face-up field into the deck or extra deck. So this does include your scales because they will be monsters. Draw cards equal to the number shuffled. And if your opponent normal or special summons a monster or monsters while this card is in the grave, except during damage step, you get to banish it from the grave and then activate one of the following effects. Special summon an Enneacraft monster from the hand in face-down defense position. Or you change your face down defense position, Enneacraft monster you control to face up. So that's how you can trigger your Atari Mar during your opponent's turn, even though your Atari Mar won't be able to negate during your opponent's turn because that effect to flip itself is only during your turn. You get to flip it, and then it will just basically Quake and Mirror Force your opponent's entire field, which is damaging. Then we've got 3 Enneacraft Release. So this lets you place an Enneacraft Pendulum monster from the deck into your Pendulum Zone. And if it's in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you banish it to add a face-up Enneacraft from the extra deck back to the hand. So as already mentioned, you will never Pendulum summon your Enneacraft monsters, so you need to find ways of getting them back as resource, and that's where Release comes into play. And then we've got 3 of the brand new Enneacraft Reset. This card is nuts. So you place an Enneanopolis from the deck or graveyard face up into your field zone, or if you already control Enneanopolis, you get to negate the effects of face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of cards in your Pendulum Zone instead. So up to 2 is usually what you can get to, and the fact it doesn't target is pretty mental. And then on top of that, if your opponent activates a card or effect while this card is in the graveyard, except during damage step, banish it, change Enneacraft monsters you control to face down defense position, up to the number of cards in your Pendulum Zone. So it just lets you reset your Enneacrafts, because as I read through those Enneacraft effects, none of them are once per turns. So you can constantly keep revealing your guys, constantly keep summoning, and then if you flip up a Mar and flip all their opponent's monsters face down, and then you're able to reset the Mar and then flip it again, it will do it again. Like, it's constantly being able to do it, and that's the one big thing that a lot of people will forget and miss with the Enneacraft cards, is that they feel once they've used it, because most modern Yu-Gi-Oh cards are once per turn, that they flip it back face down, that's it, they don't need to worry about it, but that's not the case. You attack into an Atari Mar, your whole field's going to get booked again. Because of how easy reset is, we've got the 1 Enneanopolis. The only way that you will lose your Enneanopolis is if they banish it. And if that starts to happen, you might want to consider playing 2. But even if they ghost over it, your reset can get it back. The idea is that this card will activate during the end phase, and that is when you need to stop it if you are facing Enneacraft. Because if this resolves, more times than not, if the Enneacraft player has played it right, they can very easily get you above 9,000. And that's before they even start attacking your stuff as well, which is crazy. If that wasn't enough as well, that's only going to happen during the end phase. You get to return any number of Enneacraft Pendulum monster cards you control, return to the hand. And then if an Enneacraft Pendulum monster or monsters you control is flip face up during the main phase, choose one of them and either add it to the hand or place it into the Pendulum Zone. So it's a way of being able to flip up your cards and then get them out of dodge so they don't get destroyed. Specifically with cards like Mar, could be quite useful for you. And then the final cards, I've got 3 Dimension Fissure in the main deck, so massive shout out to Shane on this one. So Shane's the one that's been playing Enneacraft the most, and this was originally Rasphere mode, and I brought up the question, I was like, how consistent is the next format going to be ending on 3 forms of interruption? And he kind of agreed with that, that's probably not. So with Dimension Fissure, what this does is it stops Droll, which is one of the biggest issues against this deck. I'm pretty sure it also stops Ghost Ogre, because if I remember rightly, see if I've got a Ghost Ogre to one side, pretty sure Ghost Ogre is one of the ones that has to go to the graveyard. Yeah, send this card from the hand or your side of the field to the graveyard, so it stops Ghost Ogre. It's also a very good anti-meta up against Cool Tunes. Yes, there are ways that they will be able to destroy this, negate this, whatever, but there are times that if you hit this on them early, it can disrupt them. And if you are going second, you activate D-Fissure. Again, straight away, that means every time they try to synchro off and put the monsters in the graveyard, they're not going to hit the graveyard. So they would have to chain to it, and then that will force one of their interactions. The final 3 cards is 2 Pot of Extravagance and 1 Pot of Prosperity. Like I said, the extra deck I am not using. If I was going to use the extra deck more, it would probably be the 1 Pot of Prosperity and then 2 other cards. But that's when you need to then consider Zaborg the Mega Monarch. And personally, when I've played Zaborg the Mega Monarch, I've never really had too much success for it, just because it requires 2 tributes. and it has to be one of them being a light monster, and your light monsters in this deck are your bigger guys, and usually I'd much rather leave 2 monsters on the field that are going to have these flip effects to disrupt my opponent than try and rip their extra deck apart and get hit with an Imperm, a Veiler, or just be already under draw and then Zaborg doesn't do anything. So something to consider. You can change it up as you wish, but to me, I've kind of just used the extra deck as just empty fodder. So that's it for the entire main deck. Now to show you the extra deck as a demo. So this is only going to be 12 cards, but the idea is you're just going to play cards that don't mind being sent to the graveyard. The idea behind showing you these cards here is you can double up on any of them that you wish, but it's more so to be aware of what these card effects are and why you play them. But like I said, these are only going to be utilized if you are playing Ultimate Slayer, but mainly Zaborg the Mega Monarch. So we've got Elder Entity in the Tis. A lot of people should know what that one does now. If it's sent, it then gets to target and destroy. I've got the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. This is just a slower version of Natis, but you'd probably end up just playing 2 Natis. Garura to give you the draw. You've also got Ferrojeet that you can use. It can give you a draw and a putback. For the Xyz, you've got the the Mineralogic Aggregator, so target negate. You've also got Valon, which would be the target Book of Moon. We've got Packbit, which is starting to pick up a bit of hype right now because of Harmonia. But this one just gives you the discard and put a monster into the spell and trap zone, which sometimes you don't want it in the grave or wherever. Malong lets you return a card. And then we've got the Dirac engine. And the idea is that you would send your 2 Asteros. And then that can set up the ability of dropping a Dirac Meteor during your opponent's turn, as well as the Dirac Vesello, or Vesipto. The idea is that, you know, you're basically just setting up your Dirac Meteor to hit them twice, and that could really cause them issues. And the final one is the Paleozoic. The idea behind this one is if a set card on the field would be destroyed by card effect, you banish it from the field or grave instead. So obviously you'd banish it from the graveyard and protect. So you're basically trying to send cards to the extra deck that are going to have graveyard effects. Garura is of course only a once per turn. So that's the idea, is that the final 3 cards can be either Mouser as a Book of Moon, Ferrojeet, or you can also play like something that could be quite spicy if you do resolve the Zaborg, is you could play Shadol Schism with like App Cologne and Winder and everything else like that. The only issue with that is by the time you resolve your if you resolve your Zaborg the Mega Monarch correctly and you look at your opponent's extra deck and just rip it to pieces, you should be winning the duel. There is no reason not to win the duel once that resolves, in my opinion. Moving on to the side deck. So for the side deck, I've got 2 Trill Tactics Thrusts, and then you've got the targets for your Trill Tactics Thrust being different Dimension Grounds and the Black Goat Loss. Keep in mind as well that when you consider your thrust for the main deck, you do have access to your own reset. You've also got access to your own reverse. You could technically also get access to Pot of Prosperity if you really, really want to. You can't do Extrav because Extrav needs to be starting the main phase. You've also got Release as well. So there are other cards you can get access to that will kind of increase your consistency. But more times than not, these are just cards that if you get hit with draw, you hit them with Trill Tactics Thrust, you take away their graveyard or you take away their core card. Then we've got Draw and Lock Birds, pretty standard on just type of environment. You could consider Cross Out and you could also consider Call by the Grave. Honestly, I just feel the consistency is that low that I'd much rather play cards that are like Thrust than I would play Call by and Cross Out, but that's just preference. For going second, we've got 3 Ra Sphere mode. The idea behind this one is if your opponent's consistently ending on 3 monsters, probably more times than not though, if you are playing against Enneacraft, you should know that they will play Ra Sphere mode. So if you just end on 2 monsters, your opponent's not really doing anything. You can also technically normal summon it by tributing, I think it's like it requires 3 tributes from either side of the field to normal summon it to that side of the field. So, yeah. And then for going first, I've got 3 Iron Thunder. Just ways to be able to deal with breakers. I feel like when you take a look at... Super Polymerization isn't that big of an issue against this deck. Neither is Nibiru because you put them all face down anyway. But what you do need to be aware of is stuff like Lightning Storms, evenly matches if that comes into the fray, which is quite a possibility. Raigekis and Lightning Storms you can deal with if you put Tail into play, but then you have to specifically go out your way to get Tail and then make sure the Tail sticks. Absolutely fine. It's not the biggest worry, but if I'm going to have Iron Thunders, the other card that you can also utilize, which would be more effective for you if you get them, is the Solemn Accusation, which is the brand new Solemn card. I haven't been able to pick up my playset as of yet, but that would be a card you would put in the place of here, entirely up to you. And then also for going first, I've got 3 Vanities. The big difference with Vanities, yes, neither player can special summon monsters, which can be a bit of a damaging thing. But that's something you do need to take into account. The idea is that you'd be able to set your Enneacraft monsters, get your big guys on, tribute off one of your little guys that is not going to be of any use to you whatsoever, sit on a vanities, and then all you need to do is flip up your monsters that will then be strong enough to stop your opponent's special summoning and then push him for game. Which is why this is a side deck card and not a main deck card. But again, it's entirely up to you. Some people have luck with vanities, some people don't. Some people get locked under it. It does force them to either droplet this or imperm this. And then worst case scenario, as long as you have 2 monsters on your field, you could just tribute both of them off for your own bigger Atari Mar, Spear, or anything else like that if you desperately need to get rid of your own vanities. But another way you can also deal with your own vanities is Soul and Lunar or Book of Eclipse. If you hit yourself with your own Soul and Lunar, you get yourself out of the special summon lock, special summon much as you want to, and then flip up your Vanities Fiend and you put the lock back into place. So there's loads of different ways you can get in and out of locks with your own vanities, and I think that's what makes this deck kind of scary as well at the exact same time. Anyway, this is one of the decks quite like Clown Crew, but I feel that Clown Crew are waiting on their second wave to get to the same level that Enneacrafts are at. But I feel what Enneacrafts get is there's a lot of people that will go, oh, it's a pendulum, that's a lot of reading to do. It's like, true, but if you're facing Enneacrafts, you just need to have the bullet points. And if you're playing Enneacrafts, you just need to know the bullet points and then build off the back of it. So the bullet points are little scales, being wherever they are, they're probably all mixed up. Tremoria, Expedia, Yugioh, Arizonia, and Okanari. Scales are going to let you pay 900 life points and just basically add an Enneacraft monster. So you'll reveal 3 Enneacraft monsters, and then one of them gets randomly added to your hand. Okay, that's simple. That's your scale effects. Then what you got to remember is all of their individual effects. So Okanaria is to deal with the graveyard. Azonia is to deal with add-in. Yugioh is to deal with your opponent activating a monster effect in the hand. Expeditia is to do with when your opponent sets. And the Tremoria is when your opponent activates a card or effect in the hand, I believe. It's a special summon, a card or effect that special summons. So you just know those bullet points, you'll be good to go on those. And then for the bigger guys, you've got your Pexia, target protection. You've got your Spear, Chain Breaker, I guess. Atari Mar, Book of Eclipse. And then, wherever it may be, Destruction Effect Protection is Tail. And then Responder. Respond Bouncer is Leon. And then their scale effects are, in the end of the battle phase, pop cards. So that's basically the bullet points you need to know. And then, obviously, flip when your opponent activates a card effect during your turn only. So don't worry. Basically, if they set a Mar and you know it's a Mar, you don't need to worry about it doing anything. It's not going to flip up to negate it. That only happens during your opponent's turn. Try not to build your chains to chain link 3 or higher. Try not to target their stuff. Try not to destroy their stuff. Don't respond to their stuff as well. So there's loads of different ways where Enneacrafts will try and lock you into like kind of snooker you a little bit. But that's kind of where you need to read them, know them, and go from there. And then the biggest point you need to remember, none of them are once per turns. They can constantly keep flipping themselves if they need to, as long as they can reset themselves, and they can constantly keep using their effect. So if you read Atari Mar and you get booked, you go, cool, I get booked, and then continue to play, and then you attack into the Atari Mar, and then your field gets booked again, don't pick up Atari Mar and read it and go, are you sure you can do that again? I guarantee you they can, but you should know that before you try to do it. So, anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Shane for helping me put the Enneacraft together. Like I said, he's the one that's played it pre-support. I played it pre-support as a bit of a troll. The control aspect is a little bit too much for me. I'm not the biggest control fan. I do like to have a bit of combo in my decks, but this deck is one that is just incredibly budget, very cheap and easy to put together, and will cause people a lot of competitive headaches. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.